Okay, and a ride report from last weekend. I did about 21 miles, mixed pavement, gravel, and dirt, and the remounted tire held up fine, so I didn't see any sealant leaks. In fact, that caused a bit of a problem because one thing I do when I remount a tire and take it out on the first ride is I tend to overfill it. So I went up to around 40 psi, and the assumption is that the tire's going to leak a little bit on that first ride. So I've had tires that have dropped from, say, 40 down to 35 or 30 psi, which is my normal pressure. This time, though, it didn't drop at all. Yeah, I think it's down to about my normal riding pressure. Let me just check. Yeah, so that's right around 30 pounds, 2-bar pressure. But the interesting thing I noticed with riding these tires at 40 psi, I recalled how horrible these tires ride at higher pressures. I kind of equate it to riding a bike with a solid rubber tire instead of a pneumatic tire, because these things, they're just really hard and there's no spring to the tire. You know, you hit a bump and it just shakes the whole bike, versus when you drop down to 30 pounds, there's a lot more cushion in the tire. That was the thing that prompted me to go to Tubeless, because these tires on the Schwalbe webpage, they have a recommended pressure of 50 to 85 psi. And when I first got these tires and ran them with tubes, I was running maybe 65 psi, and I gradually dropped it to 60, 55, 50, 45, down to about 40. I could go maybe a little lower with tubes, but 35 was too low. And then when I went to tubeless, it dropped down to 35 and 30, and the tires were just totally different. This tire at 40 pounds is just really harsh and jarring when you ride on gravel or dirt. You drop it down to 30, and it's just supple. Just a night and day difference that 10 pounds of air makes. And still, both of those numbers are below the recommended pressure of 50 psi. So I like to have a little bit of squish to the tire like that. So here's the old tire that I took off. And so you can see the center portion of the tire is heavily covered with sealant. The sidewalls, not so much. And this is where all the cracks were. There's all the cracks. There's all the sealant right underneath all the cracks. So that sealant had been working for several years trying to keep the cracks sealed up. So yeah, it's really strange how this one tire had all these cracks form. So this tire was put on the bike at the same time as that other tire. I ran about 6,000 miles. And then I took this tire off when I had the flat. So the only thing I can think of is that maybe this tire might have been sitting on the shelf maybe for another year or two. And I know it couldn't have been any longer than that, because I think these tires were introduced someplace around 2010 or 2011. And I purchased these in 2012. So I mean, these tires were a new product. Schwalbe had discontinued their older marathon heavy-duty touring tire, and then they came out with this one, because I remember when I purchased these, you couldn't find much information on these because they were brand new and nobody had any long-term reviews, things like that. But yeah, I must have got one bad tire, because this one looks great. So with these tires and my typical riding activity, what I need to work out is a tire management strategy, because there's two things. You've got the tread wear, which seems to be worse on the back, and then you've got the lifetime of the rubber, which affects the front more, because the front tire just doesn't seem to wear as much. So I think what I need to do is come up with a period of time to run a new tire on the back, run it for maybe 3 or 4 years, and then move that tire to the front for the remainder of its calendar time, put another new tire on the back, 3 or 4 years back there, wear the tread down about halfway, and then move it to the front, and then get the last few years of running in front. The traditional wisdom on a road bike is you put the new tire on the front, so you have, I guess, cornering and braking power. and then you move the old tire to the rear. But with this bike doing more off-road and dirt and gravel riding, I find the front doesn't wear very much, but the back does. And having better tread on the back, you get more traction, and this half-worn tread up front is more than adequate. I haven't had any problem with front slipping out or losing traction in turns, things like that, but the rear, going up 20%, 30% grades in the dirt, having as much tread as you can have back there is definitely a good idea. But yeah, I think the tire swap is a success, so going out on a little longer ride today. We'll take it back up in the hills, do about a 35 mile ride and see how it works. But at least now I got the pressure down to a little under 30 pounds, which should be a lot more comfortable. But that was definitely a harsh ride at 40 pounds last week. But yeah, if you have some of these tires, converting to tubeless is a really big win on these tires, because it lets you drop down to, like I say, 30 pounds, and they're just a totally different tire. You know, between 30 and 40 pounds, there's just a huge ride quality difference. It's just amazing what 10 pounds less air will do. Now with the 40 millimeter tire, I can't really get too much below 30. I can run 27 in the front, but if I hit 25, I have problems with breaking the bead loose and burping air out. So 27 up here and about 30 in the back is kind of my lower limit, at least for high speed rocky trails where you got fist-sized rocks that you're hitting. And yeah, if you have any questions about these, running them tubeless, or if you've run these tires yourself and you have any feedback, go ahead and post up in the comments section below. And as always, thanks for watching.